panel of thinkers and influencers as we continue our vitally important climate justice work. On Thursday, June 19th, you're invited to join us as we celebrate Juneteenth and our 4th anniversary. There'll be plenty of food, fun, great music, good vibes, and all of your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts will be there. On Saturday, June 21st, there are 2 big events you're invited to attend.
I can't wait to hear it.
This year, KBLA Talk 1580 continues its annual partnership with the Empowerment Congress for a community celebration and dialogue to educate, engage, and empower. This year's theme is resilience in the face of chaos.
Can't wait to see what's up next.
Y'all ain't ready for this.
And new this year is our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium, moderated by Dominique DePrima, with a luncheon to follow. Dominique will be leading a dialogue with some of the most impactful Black women leaders in Los Angeles, and you're invited to join.
This is it.
All of these events are free, but seating is limited, so you must register in advance at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can find all the details you need about each event.
Check it out.
It's our 4th anniversary, and we would love to celebrate it with you.
I love you guys so much. There's nothing you can do about it.
We're KBLA Talk 1580.
The only Black Talk radio station west of the Mississippi.
Thank you for having our Black.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
Love you. Love you.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Today, we mourn the loss of Congressman Charles Rangel, one of the most influential men, African-American or otherwise, to ever serve in the Congress of the United States. But the fact that he hailed from Harlem, New York, that he succeeded Adam Clayton Powell in the Congress of the United States for more than 5 decades is a true statement about the people of Harlem. From Harlem came Adam Clayton Powell. From Harlem came Malcolm X. From Harlem came the Renaissance. From Harlem came the expectations that Black people could carry themselves in such a way, with dignity and with poise. And who hasn't played at the Apollo? Who didn't represent us well that came out of Harlem? And yet, a giant of a tree has fallen. We're dedicating our program today to the late Congressman Charles Rangel, extraordinary leader, an extraordinary visionary, and someone who rose to the highest heights in the Congress of the United States as chairman of the very, very powerful Ways and Means Committee. There are only 2 committees in Congress that are that desirous, the Ways and Means Committee, that being first, and the Appropriations Committee. I served in Congress with Congressman Charles Rangel for 17 years. Today on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, we're going to dissect an executive order that has profound ramifications for every facet of American life. The title of this executive order, issued on April 23rd, 2025, is Restoring Equality of Opportunity and Meritocracy. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered, Section 1, Purpose. A bedrock principle of the United States is that all citizens are equally treated under law. The principle guarantees equality of opportunity. Here it is, not equal outcomes. It promises that people are treated as individuals, not components of a particular race or group. It encourages meritocracy in a colorblind society, not race or sex-based favoritism. Adherence to this principle is essentially to creating opportunity, encouraging achievement, and sustaining the American dream. Now watch this. But a pernicious movement endangers this foundational principle, seeking to transform America's promise of equal opportunity into a divisive pursuit of results preordained by irrelevant, immutable characteristics, regardless of individual strengths, effort, or achievement. Now, does this sound like something Donald Trump wrote, by the way? Let's keep reading. A key tool of this movement is disparate impact liability, which holds that a near insurmountable presumption of unlawful discrimination exists where there are any differences in outcomes in certain circumstances among different races, sexes, or similar groups, even if there is no facially discriminatory policy or practice or discriminatory intent involved, and even if everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed. Now, here's the policy, Section 2. It is the policy of the United States to eliminate the use of disparate impact liability in all contexts to the maximum degree possible to avoid violating the Constitution, federal civil rights laws, and basic American ideals. Our very special guest in this hour is Liz King, Senior Director, Equity Education Officer and Programming at the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights and Human Rights. Liz currently serves as the Education Equity Senior Program Director of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, a position she has held since 2015. The Leadership Conference is a coalition charged by its diverse membership of more than 240 national organizations to promote and protect civil and human rights of all persons in the United States. In this role, Ms. King leads the organization's work to ensure that all students are fully included in welcoming schools from early childhood through post-secondary education to prepare them for college, careers in life, and the full exercise of their social, political, and economic rights. When we come forward, our very special guest on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show is Liz King.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-550-9651. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651. Tax Relief Advocates, real solutions for real people.
You really about to do it? 40 acres and a mule, this is bigger than the music. You really about to do it? Yeah, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence.
Who among us doesn't like black music? But Kendrick is right. This moment is so much bigger than music. These are serious times. We've got serious problems, and we need serious people who understand that slogans are not solutions. When you want substantial and sober analysis about things that matter to you and the ones you love, this is where you turn. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates Pastor and Mrs. William Sachs Epps on their retirement from stewardship at the historic Second Baptist Church. Dr. Epps has faithfully served Second Baptist as its senior pastor for 37 years. What a legacy of love and leadership. Pastor and Mrs. Epps will be honored at a luncheon on Saturday, July 26, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Sheraton Universal Hotel in Universal City, and you're invited to attend. Noted scholar Dr. Michael Eric Dyson is the keynote speaker. For ticket information, please contact epsretirement@gmail.com or call 213-399-2103. That's epsretirement@gmail.com or call 213-399-2103. To Pastor Epps and First Lady Epps, congratulations from all of us at KPLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Liz King. Liz, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Congressman. It's so great to be here.
I'm so honored that you're here. Liz, I need you to take us to school today to help us understand some basic concepts as we head into this new uncharted territory of having civil rights laws, human rights laws, turned on their heads, upside down, and actually used against us. What is disparate impact, and why is it so important as a way of understanding discrimination as it manifests itself today?
Thank you, Congressman, and I look forward to talking about that. I would be remiss, though, as you invoked the good name of Mr. Rangel at the beginning. I wanted to just share, I had the opportunity to work in proximity to Mr. Rangel for a minute on the Hill, and just he did so much for all of us in his incredibly important work around the Recovery Act and coming out of the economic challenges of 2008. I just wanted to say thank you for lifting up his name in this space and the opportunity to thank him for his work as he goes to the other side. And, and that gets us to thinking about Adam Clayton Powell and
absolutely
the critically important role that Mr. Powell played. And, you mentioned time to go to school, just the history lesson to remind us all, right? So we had in 1954, we had the Brown v. Board of Ed decision, which a unanimous decision rightfully ruled that school segregation was unconstitutional and violated the constitutional rights of children. And, after that, there was an effort to fund segregated schools. And it was Mr. Powell who said, we cannot allow for the funding of discriminatory schools, that the Supreme Court has said schools must desegregate. And so Mr. Powell had the Powell Amendment, as you well know, and insisted that schools be integrated if they were to receive federal funding. And so it was Mr. Powell's advocacy, along with the civil rights community, most especially the Leadership Conference, where I have the opportunity to work now, that led to the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And particularly Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which says that no recipient of federal financial assistance may discriminate on the basis of race, color, or national origin. And so that includes all public schools. It includes many hospitals and public transportation. It includes many police departments. It includes a lot of local governments. And it says if you are going to receive federal financial assistance from the government, you may not discriminate on the basis of race, color, and national origin. And so that has been the law since 1964. And, we often think about two different ways of understanding discrimination as prohibited under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. And we have a fact sheet about this on our website, and I would encourage folks to check out civilrights.org. If you go look at the fact sheet there, you can see this information that's being provided right now talks about how Title VI of the Civil Rights Act works. And it says, sometimes we see discrimination as different treatment. Sometimes people just say the quiet part out loud, and they say that their intent is to exclude certain people from the benefits of a program or activity. They say out loud that, for example, if they were to say Black students are not allowed to take an AP class, that would be different treatment. That would be discriminatory. If you are a recipient of federal financial assistance, you may not do that. And sometimes different treatment discrimination looks like you have the same policy in general. So you don't name race in the policy, but the way that it is implemented, you implement it differently for some than for others. So, for example, if we think about people who wear turbans or other religious headgear who are pulled over by the police for a stop more often than people who do not have that type of religious headgear, people who are of South Asian descent pulled over more often than white people, then that would be different treatment discrimination. But what you were asking about, Congressman, is what's called disparate impact discrimination. And I heard you were reading this terrible, terrible executive order that the president signed his name to, and that is seeking to undermine disparate impact. And disparate impact discrimination is when we look at the effects of a policy. We look not just trying to figure out, not just does it say race and use race language in the policy, not is it implemented differently for different people, but sometimes you have a policy which is described as facially neutral, but which harms one group of people more than another on the basis of their race. And if that happens, we have to ask ourselves whether we are seeing disparate impact discrimination. And this executive order that you talked about seeks to prohibit all of us from understanding discrimination as it manifests as disparate impact. And so
this question,
yes, please, Congressman.
Let me press on this just a little bit for our listeners. This particular statute was designed historically to deal with state actors, local governments, and local actors who had discriminated against people that could be proven over long periods of time, that their behavior fundamentally needed to be changed, to be more inclusive, to make room for more people, and to not hold their sexuality, their gender, their race, their religion, or whatever form of life God has presented them from being discriminated against. And now this particular executive order is doing just the opposite. It is saying that those who have historically been discriminated against can no longer be seen as having been discriminated against, but in fact, the very group of people who've been discriminating against people are now empowered to say, you're the problem, I'm not the problem. Is that essentially where this is going?
Yes, I think that is exactly right. I think what we are seeing here is a frustration that our country was beginning to make progress towards our American ideals. We were beginning to make progress towards becoming a more racially equitable society. And President Trump here is saying, not so fast. We are going to try and use these laws that are designed to implement the Constitution to protect all of us from discrimination. We are going to try and use these laws to support and maintain, reinforce, and embolden white supremacy. And that really is the goal here. And exactly, so when we're talking about Title VI, this civil rights law is about race, color, and national origin. But when we talk about Title VII, that's about prohibiting discrimination in employment on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, or religion. And we have a civil rights law called Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability. And what they want to say is that our laws should protect the interests of heterosexual, cisgender, non-disabled white men. And we know that even a system which has that as its intent has as its effect harming all of us, including those same people who are meant to benefit.
Because there's never been a history in the United States where white men have been discriminated against. It's just not designed for anyone other than white men who have historically discriminated against people. But now this law says they can't be discriminated against when they're the discriminators.
Yes, and I think what we are seeing here is merit fatigue. They are tired of having to compete against people from all backgrounds. They are feeling nostalgic for a time when white men didn't have to compete against anyone else besides white men. And so what they want to do is rig the game. They want to change the system so the only people who have opportunity are white men. They want to limit the pool, and they want to turn this merit-based system in which we get rid of these discriminatory laws. They want to turn that system on its head, and they want to create a system in which merit is irrelevant, and it is a race-based system in which only they and their friends have the opportunity to participate in our society.
Liz, when you talk about nostalgia and white men versus, let's say, the history of racial, sexual, gender-based discrimination, what do you mean by nostalgia?
I think they have this romantic idea that things worked better when it was only white men had the opportunity to be in boardrooms. Only white men had the opportunity to go to college. Only white men had the opportunity to be police officers and firefighters. They have this nostalgia for this romantic ideal. As if, for example, it was not Mr. Rangel who probably did more for low-income white people in Appalachia than most white members of Congress have ever done. But they have this romantic nostalgia for a time, a time in which these decisions, we think about these limitations on who had the right to vote. And Wade Henderson always says that we didn't become America until 1965. It was the Voting Rights Act that made us a democracy. It was the Voting Rights Act that said, you have to win elections. You have to be elected by the people, all of the people. You cannot artificially create barriers to the ballot that limit who has the opportunity to vote for you. We see the same thing with colleges and universities. For decades, they were limited to white men, and they started to open their doors. And what are we seeing now? An effort to shut down colleges and universities. They are uninterested in having to compete against anybody else to get into Harvard. They want to rig the game. They want to limit who has a chance to participate. And this attack on disparate impact is one of the ways we hold them accountable in their sneakiest moves, because they don't come out and put out a sign anymore saying they do sometimes, right? Sometimes they even put on hoods, but most of the time they don't say what it is they're trying to do. Most of the time they're sneakier about it, and we need a way to catch them and prevent them from this continued harm of racial discrimination.
I find this, if it weren't so laughable, if it weren't so serious, it would be laughable. I see in this moment white men, essentially without having to sing the song, walking down the street saying, "We shall overcome. We shall." I see them trying to claim the moral authority of movements that they did not build, of sacrifices that they did not make, of jail terms and letters written in Birmingham jail that they did not write, of poems and songs that they did not sing, of summers that they did not sacrifice through, of water fountains they did not drink out of schools no one has ever denied them an opportunity to attend, demanding now that they have the moral authority to stand at the Lincoln Memorial and tell us about the dream that they have, different than the dream that Martin Luther King Jr. envisioned for the rest of us. That somehow we are on the other side of our own dream, and now we are being told by the generation who has primarily benefited from the largesse of America that somehow this American story is not right. And I want to add this, Liz, because yesterday was Memorial Day. And on Friday, I did a program on this station where I reminded everyone that 10,000 people in South Carolina, newly freed slaves, marched around graves in 1865, around Union soldiers and African-American United States colored troops who had fought for their freedom. They called it Flag Day. And over time, Congress passed a law to change it from Flag Day to Memorial Day, celebrating not what happened in 1865 and during the Civil War, but all wars: World War I, World War II, World War III, Korea, Vietnam, the War on Terror, you name it. They rewrote the story of Memorial Day because it was our story, just like they rewrote Thanksgiving, just like Labor Day isn't just about unions and organizing. We went from a slave labor society to organizing to get paid our benefits. And now we're being told that the other side that has historically discriminated against us, that they now have the right to claim racial discrimination by people who have yet to benefit from the largest of America. Talk to me, Liz.
No, I think it's just, I mean, this grievance politics, and you and I we have talked about Du Bois before, and I keep coming back to this question of what is it that they think they're getting out of here. What they are coming up with these rules that mean that we're not going to have the best firefighters. We're not going to have the best doctors. We're not going to have the best scientists, because if you narrow the pool, if you say only these group of people get to be scientists, or only these group of people get to be firefighters, if you get rid of disparate impact and you allow for these discriminatory policies to be in effect, it will hurt all of us. They think they're going to win, but it's a lie. I always think about, King talked about segregating white folk from honest thinking. And that is what we are seeing right now. They are engaged collectively in a massive lie that they repeat to one another, and they think that they will benefit, and they will lose. And they will lose a lot along the way. And we will all lose a lot along the way.
Liz, I have about 30 seconds before we come forward. Let me ask you a quick question. Is this thing even constitutional? This thing from April 25th, 2020. Is this constitutional? Is this legal?
Thankfully, we have some great lawyers who are looking into that. But when we come back, I would love to talk about what's going to happen next and opportunities for people to get involved, to use their voice and engage in the civic process, because this is only the beginning of their longer agenda here, what we're going to see in the regulatory space, what we're going to see in the courts, and what we're going to see in Congress. So I look forward to talking to you about all of the things that folks can engage on, where they can learn more, and how we can all work together to ensure that we have prohibitions on discrimination in all its forms.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, Liz King.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Chicago had a less violent Memorial Day weekend than last year, with 22 people shot and 2 killed. Black Mayor Brandon Johnson credits his administration's approach to safety and expects continued improvement as summer approaches.
Homicides are down 21%. Shooting incidents are down 36%. Robberies are down 36%.
Last year, 41 people were shot, with 9 killed. Black Maryland Governor Wes Moore is asking FEMA to assess flooding damage in Western Maryland, which damaged buildings, cut power, and forced school evacuations. He says state emergency costs were high, and the assessment will help determine if Maryland qualifies for a presidential disaster declaration. And a bill advancing in the Louisiana state legislature would allow the New Orleans Sewerage and Water Board to elect its own president, ending the automatic role of Black Mayor LaToya Cantrell. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Two different outcomes for LA's baseball teams on Memorial Day. The Dodgers got home runs from Shohei Ohtani and Will Smith in a 7-2 win at Cleveland. The teams meet up again tonight. After winning 8 straight, the Angels have lost 3 in a row. The Yankees beat the Angels 5-1. The Angels will try again tonight with the Yankees at Anaheim Stadium. Oklahoma City is only 1 win away from the NBA Finals. They beat Minnesota 128-126 to take a 3-1 lead in the Western Conference Finals. 40 points, 10 assists, and 9 rebounds for OKC guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the NBA MVP. This young brother is fun to watch. His mid-range game is outstanding. Game 5 is Wednesday night in OKC. Game 4 in the Eastern Conference Finals is tonight in Indianapolis. Indiana has a 2-1 lead over New York. The LA Sparks are back in action tonight in the WNBA. They're at home against the Atlanta Dream. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Imagine every pregnant person in LA County having the support they deserve. A doula on every block. Doulas provide emotional, physical, and informational support during pregnancy, through labor, and beyond. Medi-Cal now covers doula care. That means you can get the support you need or train to support families in your community. The LA County Medi-Cal Doula Hub is here to help. Learn more and get started today at ladoulahub.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is none other than Liz King. She is the Senior Director, Education Equity Program, the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Liz, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you so much.
Liz, before we go into all of the things that you need us to do, and we're going to set aside some pretty significant time to go through that, I do have two further questions. What is the Trump administration trying to do, and why are they trying to do it in this way?
Yeah, so what we're seeing here, honestly, is an effort to fulfill the dream of the Reagan administration, which is to significantly narrow the scope of our civil rights laws to prohibit essentially only those forms of discrimination which are occurred in the past, right? And so that was their agenda in the 80s. They were unsuccessful. But as you pointed out, they are not just trying to narrow the scope of our civil rights laws, to narrow the scope of the non-discrimination protections. They are actually trying to encourage and require discrimination by weaponizing our civil rights laws. And so specifically, what they're trying to do is strip out of our laws something called disparate impact, which is when we look at the impact that a law has, we look at the data and we see as this law is being implemented, Latinos are hurt far more often than are white people. When this law is being implemented, and we ask more questions and we say, well, what is the policy justifiable? Is there a justifiable reason for the policy that is having this disparate harm, causing more harm to some groups than others? And if there is not a justification for that policy, it is likely that that policy is discriminatory. And we talk about this in the context of education. For example, when we talk about school discipline. So one example we think about a lot is if a school has a policy where they suspend children who are truant. So you don't come to school and we put you out of school. And that is causing disparate harm to one racial group over another because of maybe residential patterns or bus patterns. Maybe some people are late more often than others. Some people have a harder time getting to school than others. It is hard. There is no educational justification for putting kids out of school because they weren't coming to school. And it is harming one racial group more than another. And that we say is racial discrimination. And so what the Trump administration is trying to do is limit what we can describe as discrimination, while at the same time saying that you are not allowed to change policies in order to achieve equal opportunity. And you had asked before, Congressman, about whether or not this was constitutional. And this executive order directs federal agencies not to enforce the law. They have one job. When you're the executive branch, you have one job. You enforce the law. That's what you do. That's what the Constitution says. That's what Article 2 says, plain, clear. And so I think we really do have to ask the question, if you're directing federal agencies not to enforce the law, are you complying with the Constitution here? And so that's a huge part of what's going on. And the reason they want to do this is they want to create a rigged system where their friends benefit and everyone else loses.
I find this somewhat troubling, and I know I'm going to take a deep stretch here, because it's one thing to be in Congress or to be in the Senate, to be arguing with the liberals on the one side why this makes sense. Disparate impact ought to be in the law, and fighting with conservatives who might make the case that this discriminates intentionally against people who have been practicing discrimination, but we don't care. We don't want it to impact us anymore. And it's a whole nother universe, which we haven't even broached, when these executive orders become algorithms. And this is artificial intelligence thinking for the government. We haven't even broached this yet. We can't broach it because at least there's a reasonable conversation between human actors over what the law is. Here is a group of people who've been discriminated against. This is how we're going to remedy it, to bring them from the valley of discrimination to the mountaintop of equality with the rest of us as Americans. But what happens when the computer is making that decision? What happens when artificial intelligence is making that decision off of an inverted version of what the law was intended to do against the backdrop of all of the history that this administration is trying to erase? That's deeply troubling stuff. And it's coming. It's coming. And we don't know quite what to do with it yet. Liz, let me ask you this final question, and then let's get to the business of what we need to do to help in the immediate short term. What would it mean if we could no longer use disparate impact to understand and root out discrimination? What would that mean?
Yeah, if we no longer had access to this tool, you talked about artificial intelligence as a great example, right? So when we talk about historic redlining, someone sat down with a red pen and they drew on the map and they said, if you live on this side of the line, you can get a loan. And if you live on that side of the line, you can't get a loan. But in that scenario, there was a person with a pen drawing a map. We could go and we could look and we could find out what information informed this decision. Why did you decide who got access to credit and who didn't? With artificial intelligence, it's not a person drawing that line. It just comes out of the computer like that. The computer comes out and says, this person is a risk and that person isn't. This person gets an opportunity and that person doesn't. And we cannot see what's going on inside the mechanics. We cannot see how all of these data are interacting with one another. So I have no doubt that part of their goal here is to enable digital discrimination, to enable algorithmic bias, to enable these new ways of decision making that are going to only serve to reinforce in far more opaque ways how discrimination has always worked and existed in this country. And so
and then they're going to say, and then they're going to say, Liz, that no human actor is involved in this. It looked at everything objectively, and you just ended up on one side of the fence, one side of the town, one side of the red line. There's no one to sue for their biases because it was generated by a computer or an algorithm that read through some executive order from Ronald Reagan plus Donald Trump, and it equals flipping long fought for, sacrificially earned rights on their head, and then the computer spit out some kind of nonsense puzzle that it draws that says don't loan money in this neighborhood or on this side of the fence, or don't put money in this school because the students don't perform quite like students in this school. And of course, that is increasingly deeply troubling. We have 2 minutes remaining in this segment. Let's begin the process, Liz, of sharing with us what we can do as boots on the ground.
Right. So here is one part of the thing that they got right, which is they have to go through the regulatory process to change regulations. Now, they got almost everything else about it wrong. And so what we need people to do is by June 16th, they need to submit a comment into the Federal Register. Now, this may be the nerdiest thing that you ever do, but it is incredibly important. And we are going to have a link on our website that people can go to at civilrights.org, and you'll be able to go to that link and submit a comment and say, I want our civil rights laws to prohibit discrimination in all its forms. And so we can talk about what's going on right now is at the Department of Energy. Now, they're starting with the Department of Energy because they thought we wouldn't notice. They're starting with the Department of Energy, and they're trying to change the rules to take disparate impact out of the regulation at the Department of Energy. So if you go to our website, you'll be able to learn more about this. But we have until June 16th to comment. But what's supposed to happen is they're supposed to seek comment from the public on the front end. They're supposed to publish a draft rule and then ask the public for feedback and then publish a final rule. But what's happening right now is they're trying to publish the final rule. But they said if they receive significant adverse comments, they will amend or withdraw the rule. And so I know we're about to go out on break, and we can talk a lot more about how this process works, but this is about civic engagement. This is about every voice being heard, every community organization being heard, and saying to the Department of Energy and our federal government, we want all our rights here and now, as Dr. King would say at Cobalt Hall. So that is what we're talking about here is regulations, the Department of Energy. And I would love to talk about environmental discrimination as well when we come forward again. And let's talk about all the ways that this shows up.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. I can't beat her exit when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
The IRS finally caught up with Louie.
I hadn't paid my taxes in 8 years. I owe the IRS a lot of money.
Louie was in deep trouble.
We're going to take your house, put a lien on your bank account, garnish your pay. They don't care. They're going to take your paycheck.
Louie found out about Optima Tax Relief, the leading tax resolution firm. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, they've resolved over $1 billion for their clients.
Optima Tax, they help me. They calm me down. They make me feel comfortable, and I trust them.
Louie has a lot to be thankful for.
I don't owe the IRS anymore, and I'm able to live a comfortable life, a lot better life. It was because of Optima Tax.
For tax help you can trust, call Optima now for a free consultation. Take it from Louie.
If you owe the IRS, don't go it alone. Give Optima Tax a call. They can help you.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project.
Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do you do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Barbecue season is back. Hey, it's Ellen. And this is Sarah Beth. And a little thing we love about the Chick-fil-A Smokehouse Barbecue Bacon Sandwich is that zesty barbecue sauce. I love that it was a little sweet, a little tangy, and with the mac and cheese. I feel like I tasted the brown sugar bacon first. It was the absolute best combination. Pro tip, 3 sandwiches are always better than 1.
Order the Smokehouse Barbecue Bacon Sandwich and a Coca-Cola on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Liz King, Senior Director of the Education Equity Program for the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Liz, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you so much.
Liz, quick question for you. Let's go over this civic engagement with respect to the Department of Energy, since we were supposed to be sleeping on this. What we need to do. And then I'd like to transition in this, our final segment, into your thoughts on the environment. I'm a little bit perplexed as to whether that's the environment in Washington generally, or you're talking about clean water, clean air, and other environmental regulations that matter. We'll come to that in just a moment. But Liz, more on the Department of Energy and civic engagement.
That's right. So the Department of Energy right now is engaged in this rulemaking process. And that means they have put forward a regulation that is going to govern recipients of Department of Energy grants. Now, there are 46 federal regulations that govern Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. And if they want to get rid of disparate impact, they have to go change 46 regulations. So they have started with the Department of Energy, and we need to speak together with a loud, clear voice that we will not let them do this quietly. And so you can go into the Federal Register, into federalregister.gov, or you can go to our website and you can submit a comment. And in your comment, you can say, we want all our rights here and now. We object to their effort to cover up discrimination and to remove a crucial tool the government must use to enforce non-discrimination law. And so that's what's going on right now. That is a comment deadline that ends on June 16th. So they said in their notice, the Department of Energy said, that if they hear significant adverse comments by June 16th, they will back off of their plan. And so we have to be loud and clear that we are not going to let them do this, and we have to speak out against this. And so it is a complicated process. It's more complicated than calling your member of Congress. It's more complicated sometimes than writing a letter, but it's incredibly valuable because when you submit a comment into the Federal Register, you become a part of the administrative record. So then when LDF or the ACLU or MALDEF or somebody else goes to court, they bring that administrative record and they say, look at all of these people who told you not to do this. Look at all of these people who objected to this regulation, and it becomes a part of the advocacy. And so it's an incredibly valuable opportunity for local community-based organizations to be heard, individual people, for churches, for anybody to say, we want to preserve disparate impact and prohibit discrimination in all its forms. Now,
I'm sorry, go ahead, please. I didn't interrupt you.
No,
I was going to say that one of the things that they can do, Liz, is share this post, share this Facebook post, repeat what you've heard from Liz today. So many of you are asking, what can we do? We need to do something. Do this till June 16th. You ain't got nothing else to do. Do this till June 16th. Let's get in the record so that when the lawyers file their cases, there are sufficient evidence of people, overwhelming evidence, that's what I'm hearing you say, Liz, that says we want to preserve disparate impact and get away with this, do away with the liability or the lack of accountability and liability that the president is trying to accomplish in this executive order at the Department of Energy. That's what I'm hearing you say. Share this post. It's impossible to replay it in your mind, everything that you've heard. Go to Facebook, go to download the app, KBLA app, and share this particular show for the purposes of educating people on a direct action that we can take together between now and June 16th. Liz, I did not mean to cut you off. I want you to finish your thought, and then let's make that pivot to the environment.
No, that was so great, right? We need to get the word out. They are trying to overwhelm us. They are trying to do this in secret, and we need to bring it into the light of day. We need to tell everyone what's going on, and we need to work together to stop this. Now, you had talked about artificial intelligence, and we know that disparate impact is one of the only ways we are going to be able to resolve discriminatory AI. But it is also
You mean a racist computer?
Yes, exactly. Well,
you mean a robot saying Black history doesn't exist. Women have never been discriminated against. LGBT don't confront discrimination. Native American, none of that. I'm a robot. And so where have you been? I'm just from Mars or something.
Well, I mean, these robots were not made by the Lord God Almighty, right? There are people who make the robots. There are people who make the algorithms. There are people who are using data that was collected by other people, right? But the other example where we really need disparate impact is when we talk about environmental discrimination. When we talk about where is a landfill built, when we talk about who's exposed to polluted drinking water, when we talk about who's exposed to chemicals coming out of these chemical treatment plants and whatever, when we talk about who's exposed to sewage, you may have seen huge cutbacks around environmental discrimination at the Environmental Protection Agency that is now going to subject people in the rural South, Black people in the rural South, to having to walk through sewage because they don't have access to sidewalks. They don't have access to plumbing like the white people who live not that far from them. And this is about disparate impact, is about all of these ways in which we are experiencing discrimination. So there is an opportunity, a time right now that we can make our voice heard, and it will not be the last opportunity. Because like I said, they're going to start at the Department of Energy and they are going to keep going on this. This is their plan. Their plan is to eliminate our civil rights laws, and the part they keep, they're going to use to hurt the people it's meant to help. And so this is just the beginning. It's going to be a long 4 years, and we are going to fight them at every turn with every tool that we have.
This is one of the reasons I love KBLA. I just don't know another radio station or another vehicle available to us to take action immediately when we're focused on the things that matter. And Liz, you have given us a wealth of information today. It's certainly my hope that as these crises and the application of this executive order in other administrative agencies begin to present themselves, that you will feel free to come back on our show and share with the people exactly what's happening and what our action needs to be to try and, well, keep this from happening, to put our finger like the Dutch boy in the dike until 2026, until we get control of Congress, until we can hold the administrative agencies accountable, until we can wrap our minds around a big, beautiful bill that Hakeem Jeffries drafts to change the big, beautiful bill that Mr. Johnson drafted and sent over to the Senate. And that's being resisted by a number of senators who say the big, beautiful bill just takes too much from average working class and ordinary Americans. Liz, we've got a couple of more minutes. I got to drill you for just one or two questions on your thoughts about the president and Harvard University and what's really taking place.
Well, I have to say, I mean, thank goodness Harvard's got it in them to fight back. So we have seen this president, he's a bully, and he behaves like a bully who has no understanding of the law. And we're going to have to see what happens next. I just am so encouraged by what we have seen from Harvard University, because they recognize that they cannot do the work of being one of the greatest universities in the world if they cannot do that in a way that is diverse and inclusive and equitable. And so I hope we keep hearing from them on that. I hope that as the president continues to double down and double down and double down again against these international students who have come to bring their gifts and talents to the United States to contribute to the educational environment of all the students, hopefully Harvard will keep fighting. And we know that what it takes to get a bully to back down is when you stand up and when you fight back. And so that's what we're seeing right now. They have the law on their side, and this is surely not the end of the story.
I'm probably making a stretch here, but at any point in time, do you expect the president of the United States to turn his attention to Yale?
We'll see. Who knows where his target is going to be next. There is a clear resentment from these elite universities that have realized there is no elite that does not include diverse, that if you are not diverse, then you are not truly elite. If you are not equitable, then you are not not truly elite. And so they are fighting back. Trump is trying to, he does oppose merit. He opposes the idea that people should have to compete against one another to get into these selective colleges. He wants to save all of the spots for himself and his cronies. So we're going to see this. We're going to keep seeing this over and over and over again. And it is only when we all work together as the diversity of Americans that we are to push back and reject this and say, this is not who we are. This is not the world we want. This is not the country we want. And that's what will make him back down. And so we have to keep speaking up and speaking out.
Could have something to do with his son not being able to get into Harvard University. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward tomorrow will be Wealthy Wednesdays with Dr. Reverend S. Todd Yeary. 1 foot in the pulpit, 1 foot in the courtroom. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Liz, thank you for spending today with us on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Until next time.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BI.